Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar entitled De-mystifying Data. My name is Michelle Mickey. I head up data and analytics here at Protiviti in the UK. For anyone unfamiliar with Protiviti, we are a boutique consultancy. We offer services in internal audit and risk and compliance historically, but more recently we have practices across technical consulting and data as well. Just want to thank you all for joining us today for this talk on SAP Migration and specifically the data journey because it tends to be a key challenge. So if we go to the next slide, I will just quickly run through our agenda. So we'll start out as we are with a quick introduction and then move into the session context and cover off some challenges, etc. We'll then go into how can we de-risk and solve some of the mystery around data where the migration is concerned. And then we'll summarize with some key takeaways. We'll have time at the end as well for question and answer. And I'd also like to say that if anybody has questions during the course of this webinar, please add them to the chat. We will be looking to go back and answer any of those questions. And also, just to let you know, we've got some Menti questions in there because we want to see how the audience is feeling about the subject of SAP migrations, and we'll see how you guys stack up to the wider market. So please do get your phones at the ready for the Mentis. And if you do have it open, maybe just keep that browser there so that you can answer the rest of them without having to go back and forth. So next slide is, without further ado, I just want to kind of introduce who's in the room to help answer questions. Obviously, I'm here, so Michelle Moody. I'm not going to go through detailed bios, but I will just introduce people. Mahendra Balisario is here with us today, and he heads up our EAS practice. He's an expert in SAP and finance. We've got Stephen Rhodes, who is a senior product specialist with Alteryx. Wassel Ahmed, who is part of my team and heads up our Alteryx capability. And Jitendra Dixit, who is our SAP guru. There's probably not a question on the ECC or the SAP for HANA side that he hasn't seen, so feel free to put some questions in the chat. So that's us in the room today. So if we go to the next slide, let me just get into the context of the session. So I'm sure a lot of you are aware that that SAP ECC is going out of support around 2027. And there's an expectation that people will move into SAP for HANA, although you could move into other ERPs as well. But it is quite a journey. And today what we're going to be talking about is how do you demystify the data? Of course, there's a lot of other topics around that in terms of how would you go about doing it, the migration in terms of greenfield, brownfield, bluefield, etc. What we're going to try to do today is to give you some ideas around the accelerating of the data side of it. Next week in part 2, we will be digging into the different migration methods and what you can expect from those. So, so that is the context of this section. And if we go to the next slide, I think we're going to kick off our first Menti. So this is to just kind of gauge where you folks are at on the call in terms of your challenges that you're facing with the SAP migration, or maybe just the things that concern you. And we're going to try and make sure that we cover those off during the session. So please, if you could just log in or scan the QR code, we can look to put a word cloud up, and that will give you an idea of what people on the call are thinking as well. There we go. So we've got data integrity, we've got data, cost, bandwidth, accountant, resources, okay. So I will be sharing the results of this with the team here, with everyone on the call, so you can have a look at it later. Cleansing, integrity, bandwidth. Okay, these are all really, really good. So, and you're very much sort of in line with some of the challenges in the market. So shall we revert back to the next slide, please? And then we'll look at some of the top challenges. So in terms of the market, here are some challenges that have been identified. One is the complexity of the migration. And I think in the word cloud that we just had, some people were calling out time and money or budgets. It's because it's, I think a lot of organizations that have ventured down the road of migration already have found that actually they haven't had enough time or enough money to cover the cost of the implementation. I think there's also the case where people maybe embark on this and have a bit of limited awareness about the options that are available for migration. And a lack of technical skills to do it. So if you think about the SAP migration, it's less of an upgrade and more of a complete transformation, which means you need different skills in both the business and the IT areas. So it does make it quite complex. The second challenge is around program management, and this is having that comprehensive planning in place across the different work streams. You need to leave some time up front to just focus on that, getting the right governance in place, and also making sure that you cover off the change management aspects, for instance, because many clients have been caught out by ineffective change management. It is a complete change of process, a very different platform, like I said, across business and the technical areas. So it's really important to think that through at the start. And in doing that planning, then it's looking at the roles that you need to make sure that the program, you've got the right intelligence, right sort of SME type of knowledge within the team. Data is another key challenge there, and this is around the fact that many of the ECC systems have been set up for a number of years, and they've got all kinds of data in there, maybe poor quality, erroneous, loads of duplicates or inconsistencies in field. So, this is a very common challenge, and we're going to be talking today about how we can help businesses so that it's easier to be able to process the data and also reconcile it going forward. A fourth challenge, and nobody mentioned this in the word cloud, but one of the challenges is around custom code. So again, with many of the ECC systems having been around for a number of years, have been modified by the business or adapted over the years, it's really important as part of your planning that you have a look at that and review it and understand whether you want to move back to vanilla, whether you need to move it as is. Another factor in here, not necessarily custom code, but some of those that have custom code are sometimes reluctant to move to the latest version of ECC. And this also presents a problem because if you're going to look to migrate as part of your planning, you must make sure that you get onto the latest version of ECC before you do it. And then finally, the last challenge that's been identified, this is probably more for those that have completed it, is around the testing and spending enough time doing the testing and not feeling rushed for making sure that you're identifying and addressing critical issues, making sure you have the right types of environments in place, and also making sure that the technical teams feel comfortable as well with the new style of environment. So those are the top challenges. I hope that resonates with folks. If we go to the next slide, let me just touch on a few key statistics here. So at the moment, they say that there's fewer than 50% of ECC customers that will complete their migration by 2027. There's an estimated 30K that are still undecided as to what they want to do. 61% think data is hindering their move forward. Many lack the right kind of skills for this. So, what are your options for a migration? It's in some ways simple, yet complex, but the first option is to stay put on ECC. You could do that and not migrate by the 2027 deadline. If you do this, you end up paying a 2% premium on support until 2030. In doing that, you will still need to migrate, but you will end up with the 2% premium, and you will need to pay the cost of the migration. So it's just something to think through. The second option would be, again, migrate to SAP for HANA. The key thing here is to decide on the method for moving across, whether it will be green field, brown field, blue field. You will need, regardless of the approach, you need to leave 2 to 3 years for that journey. The final option would be to move on. And there's a lot of customers who have come to us and said, well, actually, we'd like to move to an alternative ERP. It just seems too complex. But if we're honest, moving to any ERP can be complex. You still need to leave about 2 to 3 years to do the migration. So, that is, so this is putting us into our next mentee. Where are you in your migration story? So this is going to give you some options. So please, hopefully you can, again, scan the code, or if you've got the browser open, just put in your thoughts. So no one has started yet? Looks like no one has started yet. Okay. Oh, no, there's a few that were in progress. Okay. Coming and looking at beginning in 2025 plus. I actually think that's very interesting that those that haven't started are quite a large percentage of those. Okay. Well, this is actually quite interesting. So, for those of you who are in the planning or starting to look at where you want to go with this migration, one of the key areas will be to look at data. Now, Alteryx is a great way of being able to speed up the processing of your data. It's also a great way to de-risk the program because you can't actually reconcile the data. It will leave breadcrumbs for you. I'm going to just quickly turn over to Stephen Rhodes, who's in the room with me, and he's going to run you through an overview of the tool.
Thanks, Michelle. That's some interesting statistics and information from that, and interesting to see where people are. The large pool not started yet, so great audience for us today. So why would we typically choose a platform like Alteryx to power the integrations, transformations, and migrations going forward? As you can see, we've got many capabilities. So it's not just for the migration, it's there to allow us to deliver outcomes for your business alongside a migration strategy as well. So you can take the data and move it to your systems, but also you can gain benefits of utilizing this capability with other organizations as yourselves. And it also creates a common and safe area to start playing around with the generative AI and conversational AI technologies that are out in the space today. So a very secure and trusted approach to that, but a common interface for your data scientists, your business analysts, your business users, and the guys in IT to make use of the rich data within your organization, no matter where that sits or where that lives. It can be deployed on a premise type approach or in the cloud, so it fits in with your expanding ecosystem and that complexity that you may think you have. We can just sit alongside that capability, and it allows us to drive the outcomes that you need for your business, but also get to a good point in your migration strategy. It's fully audited, it's secure, it's governed, and it's driven by hundreds and hundreds of connectors, as well as a powerful API connectivity model to allow us to expand into your ecosystem, no matter what technology you use today. So let's take a look at the migration itself and just kind of focusing on the key areas around that migration. Let's forget about the middle bit. It's more about the income and the outcomes that we want to worry about. So we want to be looking at the data preparation and transformation of that data, ready for the new format, be whatever system you're going to take. In this case, and the examples I'm going to show you later on, is taking it from an ECC platform across to HANA. How do we get that end-to-end journey to work? And we'll show you that in the Alteryx platform in a few minutes. But again, one of the key things that was mentioned by Michelle is that testing and iteration environment and getting ready to automate this transition from system A to system B. So how can we do that? How can we plan for that? How can we make that happen? So again, by using Alteryx, we have that automation capability to drive this working in iterations, or department by department, or business unit by business unit, or platform by platform into your new space. So it's not a one-fit-all solution. It's what fits your needs to drive your operations going forward. And again, it's really important to remember this is fully auditable. And I remember seeing some of the things about accountants and justifying the investment, things like that when I first meant it. And it's how do you get the best return on investment on a migration strategy by being able to keep your business as usual operation happening alongside that transformation that's going on, separating out the data from where you are to where you need to be. So it's really, really key. And again, Marcel will show you that information as we go forward. But to make sure that we can connect into your environments, and especially into the SAP ecosystem, we've got a number of connectors that can either take data natively from SAP, or we can use templates or downloads from SAP to drive the operation. Over time, SAP has acquired, developed, created multiple interfaces, multiple solutions that they use to get you to get access to that data. That means you need a full suite of components to allow us to drive that connectivity. But not only from a read point of view from those legacy applications, but also to a write point of view. Can we get this data into the format you need, into the new systems you want, in a clean, structured way, formatted in the right kind of layout that it needs for new systems, reducing your complexity, reducing that data challenges that you have, and cleaning your data ready for the next stage. So in reality, what we're now going to try and focus in on is how do we get data out, how do we clean it, how do we prepare it, how do we transform it, ready to write it either through templates or straight into your new world. And as part of that, one of the key challenges that we've mentioned throughout and seen from your results is complexity of data, quality of data, cleanliness of data. So that's going to lead us on to our next minute question. Where do you feel you are right now with the completeness and accuracy of your data? On a scale of 1 to 10, and be honest, I think there's quite a lot of honest answers today, but this is what's going to drive the time it takes to migrate your data. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you in the completeness, accuracy of your data?
Just wait for the responses to come in. And see how I'm around 3.6, 3.8.
It's confident.
And this is, I think, what we kind of expect to see. And Michelle's called out the top 5 challenges, and there's been a lot of stress so far in this whole webinar about data. And this all brings us into essentially our piece. If you move on to the next slide over there. Now, one of the main challenges that we've mentioned that Michelle's gone through is data. And we see that as quite a big core risk to the migration program. And there's a number of reasons why. Right? The first reason is around the source systems. Many of these source systems, including SAP ECC, are legacy systems. They've been around for a number of years, and therefore naturally will have a lot of redundant, obsolete, and low quality data. And this isn't data that you naturally want to migrate over. And therefore, when it comes to migration, selectivity then becomes a huge problem. Now, a lot of people fall into the trap of migrating all of your data. And with the ECC and with HANA and the way the architectural system is set up, when you do migrate over data and you fall into the trap of transferring over bad data, it's not forgiving. There's no redacting that step and going back and redoing what you've already done. Because of this, like I mentioned, there's a big architectural difference. And for that reason, there's a lot of translation and transforming that you need to do before you're migrating over data. For this, it's not easy on your own. And that's why we typically recommend having or needing specialist knowledge within the SAP space for that successful migration. Now, SAP naturally does provide services that provide the technology that can change, support, and also the templates. But what a lot of people don't often see is the fact that the client is left to do that part. The gathering, the sorting, the cleansing, and preparation is all for the client to do. So it's all well and nice that SAP are providing technology. But if you're then sat there with your bad data and you don't have any means to correct that data, essentially you've got the same problem that you had in your legacy system. You move over to something like S4HANA, you've got the same bad data, then you have those future problems where you're trying to sift through. Now, for these risks, we've then created these accelerators. Now, our accelerators are designed essentially to do a number of different things using the underlying power of Alteryx and also our SAP experience. The first thing is making sure that these accelerators are end-to-end. They're end-to-end and they're automated in the sense that you're preparing, cleansing, and transforming both master and transactional data, moving from the source, so in this case ECC, all the way through to your desired ERP system. In this case, you've got S4HANA. And what we also provide through these workflows are documentation. So making sure each and every single step, unlike the traditional Excel method, making sure it's documented, it's nicely, and everyone can see what you're doing. The next part, and I think this is really important, is from the offset, using the underlying technology and some of the workflows that we built, we look to do a data quality assessment. So immediately, as soon as you plug in your data, before you've even done anything, you can see the quality of your data. You can see your null values. You can see which ones have gaps in them, missing values, duplicates, etc. All of these data profiling aspects are so important as soon as you plug in your data. This is what we look at design. The other part that we've done through our workflows is enhance them through what Stephen's mentioned, the connector. The connector not only allows you to read directly from SAP, so where the traditional method may be just some Excel or CSV downloads, here you're using an SAP connector that plugs directly into your source system. Now what that gives you the ability is not only read, but also write back into. So when you talk about this migration, for example, you're getting data from your ECC system, and typically you get a loading templates, and you fill in those loading templates, and you can do that through Alteryx, or you can use the DBW connector to write back into the target system. Now, the other big piece of these accelerators is reconciliation. The whole point is of these workflows, and you'll see through the demonstration that I'll present on the screen shortly, is it's all step by step. And what this helps is, compared to like a SQL code or Excel formula or however else you may want to do this step, the step by step is so easy to follow, it's simple, and therefore it gives the users the ability to track that data across the journey. So if you can see your data going from source with all your records and all your fields and all your columns to your final output, and you can see where the changes have been made throughout that entire journey. And that's what makes the workflows really, really powerful. And the last part, we've talked about this underlying technology, Steve talked about Alteryx. For us, it makes the whole process very simple. And that simplicity naturally will drive a lot of advantages in this migration process. The biggest part here is the teams that are working towards doing the migration. So you're looking at the finance teams, the SAP teams that work with the data. So suddenly they're not doing it in silo anymore, and they're not just doing a simple migration. They're understanding what they're also transferring over. They're understanding the column. They're understanding what they've taken out, put back in, and therefore it naturally promotes a more successful migration. Now, we illustrated the typical migration process through what a lot of people on this call hopefully will know is an ETL, the extract, transform, and load. Now, what we do within this is essentially all of it. So we go from using the connectors that Stephen's talked about and the workflows that we're going to demo. We're extracting the data directly from source, from ECC. Now, like I said, you can do that one or two different ways. You don't need to use the connector. You can do it through manual table extracts. And that's applicable for both master and transactional data. But one thing to know, all these little chunks that we've got, is not just ECC, it's all other ERP systems. So Alteryx, as you'll see, comes loaded with a bunch of other connectors with Oracle and Microsoft Dynamics. So you can extract data from a number of different ERP systems directly from source. And then this middle part is what we look to really focus on and use our specialist knowledge around, is transforming. This is the part where we mentioned data quality in the previous mentee. This is the part that we really want to focus on and essentially eradicate and fix. And this is the part that a lot of our clients are stuck with. And these transformation steps include taking out the redundant data, obsolete data, looking at duplicates to make sure you're not uploading duplicate records, looking at incomplete data. Transform and translation are typically related to the architectural differences. So ECC may have, or your old ERP system may have a bunch of fields that suddenly a new system needs it in a different format. It needs to have hyphens or punctuation, etc. This is where transformation and translation comes into it. We also look to do the DQ health check that we mentioned. And what we do is we make sure that all of this data is in a ready-to-upload template and a format that your end target ERP system likes. We also look to build these workflows that aren't just sort of freestyle and just built on the fly, but they're done so they're reusable. They're extendable building blocks that are repeatable, that can be adapted to all your data sets. So you build it once, and that's one of the things that we look to really transform and change within our processes. Build it once and never have to do it again. You're not messing around with formulas anymore. It's all repeatable steps. The other part of the workflow that I'll be demonstrating is exception reports. Now, this is really, really important, not for the sake of just duplicates, for reconciliation, for missing values, anything like that. At the end, you want to have some exception reports that go out to the business so they can review. And that forms part of the approvals and validations. And the other part I mentioned as a bullet point here is reconciliation. Like I said, reconciliation is very, very important to make sure if you've got 1,000 records, for example, in your old system, making sure that those 1,000 records are cleaned, transformed, and also then put into your new system. And what Alteryx does is it gives you that visibility that you never were able to see before until you've loaded it in and then you realize you made a mistake. Now, the loading part, like Stephen mentioned, is through either a template that's provided, in this case by S4HANA, or you can do it through the DVW connectors using their iDocs tool. If we move over, then I'll actually start with the demo. So I'm going to keep it zoomed out for a couple of moments, just because I just want to signify, I guess, how a workflow typically looks like within Alteryx. Where I've mentioned in the previous slide the ETL, and I've talked about how the extract and load can essentially be done for any ERP system, and in the middle bit is the transform. This is essentially what you see. So on the left-hand side, zoomed out, you see where we're extracting the data. In this case, we're extracting data from ECC. This green layer in the middle is where we're doing the transformation steps. So what we've done is the people on the call and our SAP guys has gone through the transformation steps that you typically would want and see within the SAP migration. And we've gone through each and every single scenario to demonstrate how something like Alteryx does it in a very simple way. Now, on the right-hand side, you've got that loadability. So once you've gone and extracted, you do your transformation on the right hand side, you've got your load. And again, like a sandwich, you've got either side of the puzzle that you can, because of the modular approach, you can tailor to your own ERP system. What you've got at the top as well, you've got an area of exception reports. So what I mentioned before, not only are you doing this end-to-end workflow of source, transform, and then target, you're also able to manipulate and generate reports out of this into exception reports that then business can review. If I then go zoom in to this, one thing to call out, and one of the reasons I guess we have this brilliant partnership with Alteryx is all of these tools that you see are essentially low code, no code. So a lot of these typical things that you see around transforming data, filtering data preparation, have all been done through this Alteryx palette that you see at the top. All these tools are available for you to use, and you just configure depending on your needs. And all of this is very sort of self-explanatory and descriptive, so you don't need to remember or require much knowledge to learn and teach yourself SQL or Python or Excel formulas. On the left-hand side, as I mentioned, this is where you load in your data. In this case, we've enhanced this workflow by using the BBW connector. And what you can see from this little configuration window, and that's all this configuration window is settings for your specific tool, is how we've connected to this Mara table. And we've got a list of all the key and text fields that you'll see within that specific table. It'll give you a table name. It'll give you a list of all of this. And what it also allows you to do is select which columns you want to bring into your workflow. So at no point do you need to bring in everything and then sort of go through all these acronym columns and delete everything and try to figure out what they are. Immediately, you know exactly what data you want to bring over to your loading template. Therefore, you select it from the start. And this is all configurable. Not just because I've selected it once doesn't mean I can't go back and select it again. So in this example, we've got 4 different input files. I'm going to hide this up. I've got 4 different input files, and then I start going through my transformation journey through these green boxes as we've shown. Now, for the purpose of delta loads, where if you've got 2 concurrent systems, ERP systems running at the same time, and let's say you've migrated all your data, but the old set legacy system is still importing new data for the time being, this is where you can use the delta load and filter functionality in Alteryx to bring in your new data set. So you can add a simple date filter, you can specify a date range on a specific date, and then you can just pull in that data from the offset. All of this that I'm showing you is all through drag and drop tools. Moving on, we're doing some simple data preparation. So here we're using a number of different Alteryx tools. One is around autofill data. So typically what we see within this example is a lot of string data. So we're using the autofill tool to automatically update string to date and so on and so forth. We're then using a join tool to join 2 of our data files. Compared to the traditional method where you're doing and specifying specific right, left, and inner join, here you've got all 3 options here for you to select. In the last bit, what we're doing is once we do a join, we're splitting out the data. What we can then do is use a union tool to add it all back in. And the last part we're doing is we realized from going through this example that we need to hard code some columns in. So you can use a formula tool exactly how you would do in Excel, but in this one drag and drop tool that's hard coded that you don't need to keep doing every single time that you open your data, to hard code in specific columns and values that you may need in your target ERP system. Moving on then, this is the part where we're sort of replacing and updating values. So we talked about reconciliation before, and talked about the architectural differences between ECC and HANA. And this may be an example where, for argument's sake, in ECC you may have a column that says 1, 2, 3, and in your target ERP system in S4HANA, it may need to be ABC, 1, 2, 3, or whatever the target specifies. So this is where you can use your own text input files or Excel input file, and a text input file looks as simple as this, where you've got your old values and your new values, and you can then go in and replace your data to update the values that you need. Moving on here, we're then doing a big chunk in sort of a 3-part process where we're removing obsolete data. In this specific example, we've got data that we know that we need to bring out of our source data. So we're looking at specific columns, and we're taking out columns that equal specific values. And we're then also looking at several numerical transactional columns and looking at 0 transactions and trying to pull that out of our data. Again, at no point is your data lost. It's all for you to then reconfigure and see how your data is changing. And then after we've derived a list of all this redundant and obsolete data, we use the union and join tool to take all of that out. Moving to the right then, we're doing some simple validation and simple transformations for the sake of loading. So the loading templates that S4, for example, gives you aren't very sort of forgiving. They're very set, they're pre-formatted, they need to be very specific in terms of mandatory columns, the types, etc. So this is an example where we're rounding to 1 dp. Now, if I was to do this manually with an Excel, I'd have to go and do that column every single time. But once I've built this once, it dynamically picks up all the columns and rounds it to the nearest decimal place. The next part is just conversion of dates. So ECC likes dates in a specific format. So this is where we're using, again, a dynamic tool to pick up all the dates from all our data sources, and we're transforming that data into the required format. The last bit here, which is probably the most important, is then once we've got our data. So earlier on, I talked about how you can select exactly which columns you need. But this is a perfect example of that you can bring in all the columns you need, but this is the part where you're selecting the final columns. So you look in your template, you're thinking, okay, these are the columns that I need. And at this stage, you're selecting exactly which columns you need from your source that will then feed into your template. The last bit here that we've got right at the top is exceptions report. And this part really helps the entire end-to-end workflow because you're able to do multiple things all at once through this exceptions report. And it really does improve the efficiency of your migration. So here, we're doing a duplicate check on a specific record and making sure that there's no duplicates. And if there are, it's producing a file that business can review. Here, we're looking at a specific missing type, looking at that value, again, dropping it into the same file. And here, at the end, we're doing some summary and totals. And what we're doing is putting it into the same file, and that file can be emailed automatically, or sent out, or saved somewhere for the business to review, and then we sort of go through that validation process. But essentially what you have here is that end-to-end workflow. You're not doing things in silo, and everything here has been built purposely to be repeatable, like I mentioned, simple, at every single point. One thing I'm just going to call out before I move back to the benefit slide is...
There's a question in the chat as well.
Yeah. Will the recording be shared afterwards? Yes. So we're recording this entire session. So it will be sent over following this webinar. Now, what I'm saying is at each point, when you're doing the configuration, you're going through the tooling, you're able to see your data in real time. So at the bottom, what I haven't shown so far is your results window. So this is where you see your data being transferred over time. So this is where I've got a day. I'm then seeing, as I click through each and after tool, I'm seeing how my data is being changed towards the bottom. And this is where we talk about reconciliation and simplicity. This isn't just doing something for me from a technical perspective, but it's allowing me to understand the data. And in the event that you're in a team of other SAP specialists or a finance team, everyone gets the same visibility, everyone gets the same knowledge and understanding of the data. Therefore, naturally, you can fix things before they go wrong. Let me go back over the slides. And now with everything we mentioned, some of these benefits we've sort of called out before and sort of stressed within the demo. The first thing is around repeatability. So once you build it once, you're not having to do the same thing over and over again. If you're working in a team, one person can build a workflow and share the building blocks. Each part of the little things that you saw, each little green square box that you saw can be cut and paste into another workflow. You can have different ERP systems with different source data, and the same rules can be applied to the same source data. The other part of it is business control. You're empowering teams to control the data and prepare. That simplicity, that visibility, that the ability to reconcile your data is really, really powerful within Ultras. The other part is data quality. Data quality, you're able to there's tools that we haven't shown, but also within the results window, you're able to see nulls, you're able to see errors within your data, any issues around punctuation, any white spaces. So data quality is at the forefront of what we're trying to do through these workflows. The other part is reconciliation, like we mentioned before. The reconciliation is essentially ensures consistency. You're preventing errors from happening. And that's really, really important, especially where, as I mentioned, the loading templates aren't forgiving. And once you've uploaded it once, that's it. It's within your system. And redacting and going back can be very, very difficult. So we're making sure that this transformation layer is done accurately as best as possible. Now, naturally, those four things, you're going to have time, effort, and cost savings. So we've looked through our experience through all the different types of scenarios. And what we've identified is roughly a 40 to 70% reduction in time and effort in medium to complex programs. By medium to complex, we mean a lot of sort of master and transaction objects. Typically, you do that through a number of different load cycles. With Alteryx, you're building your workflow once, and therefore naturally you're not spending the time to go over and do it again and again. Now, naturally, this then means if you're saving 40 to 70% of time in SAP, the cost of doing such thing isn't cheap. You see programs up to millions, and because of the saving in time and effort, you're naturally seeing millions amount of savings. Now, that's the SAP migration benefits, but the other benefit of our solution is the product benefits, right? It's all around future sustainable benefits. The first thing is around rapid enablement. You've essentially, if you're a company that's going through mergers and acquisitions, you've essentially got a platform that really accelerates your transformation journey. The other part is around the wider use of Alteryx. Not only is it an ETL tool that can be used very efficiently, but it has other abilities around spatial analytics, documentation, reporting, and here, as mentioned below, advanced analytics. So you've got machine learning. And you also, there's a bunch of tools that Alteryx enables around Gen AI. So you can produce auto insights from your data. So not only are we looking at this from an SAP migration perspective, but the benefit as a whole the tool provides you is great around the future sustainable benefits. And on that note, I'm just going to pass over back to Michelle.
So thank you for that. I just want to summarize. We're kind of coming towards the end of the webinar, but just a few key points. It's extremely important to plan carefully at the start. And we can't emphasize that enough because we've had a lot of clients that have come to us over the last 18 months and they're caught out by some of the either the data or custom code, et cetera. So it's really key to take the right amount of time up front and plan it carefully. Decide early on what method you want to use for migration. This is equally very important because this is going to tell you how you want to or should be migrating the data in the way that's going to be most successful for that method. Next week, we will be delving into the different types of migration options, exploring pros and cons around greenfield, brownfield, bluefield. So please do join us then if you found the methods a bit confusing, and we'll be walking through those. Also, I think one of the key takeaways is to take the time to prepare and curate your data, because this will pay dividends. One of the challenges that we see with our clients is that many want to try and use Excel to just take the data from point A to point B. And if you're a very large organization, medium organization, or even on the smaller side, it is really difficult to do that because you can't reconcile it. We've seen a lot of clients that have wasted a lot of time having to go back to the drawing board doing that. And this is why we've spent the time looking at what is the best way of empowering the business and the finance teams who really know the data intricately to empower them to help curate that data because they know exactly what that data looks like rather than trying to put it into a tool that sits within IT and maybe people in that area don't understand the data as much. So, again, invest the time in curating that data set and getting it into the templates properly. Also, I think one of the other takeaways would be to adopt more of a migration mindset, thinking through what you need to do with your master data, what you need to do with your transactional data. Do you want to migrate everything? Will you archive some of it? How does that need to look? What's it going to look like in SAP for HANA? Can you automate some and take advantage of some of the new functionality in the new platform? So it's really sort of taking a look at that and saying, what do I want to get out of the new system as well? And just following in the same string here and be looking at maybe the setup of a migration COE. And this is around making sure that as a transformation program, you have a set of people that are developing the skills across both business and IT to help guide the rest of the organization through migration. And I think that's really important because, again, this isn't just an upgrade, it's a totally different platform. And being able to have a centralized team that can help you understand why did you make the decisions you made during the migration, where is the data likely to go, or what functionality is available, what should you be putting in first, in what order. If you have that sort of more of that COE function that helps and sits alongside your program, it's also very, very useful. And then finally, leave a lot of time for testing, because you are going to need to spend quite some time testing. Again, these programs typically take, on average, 2.5 years. So yes, it's complex, but you can do it. So that is it for us in terms of the presentation. But we do have Menti that you can add questions to, or if you want to ask anything on the team chat, we've got some folks here that can help answer those. So do feel free to put anything in the chat. And whilst people are potentially thinking up their questions there, I just want to again thank you for your time, your attention today. And again, we look forward to seeing people next Tuesday to talk about the different SAP methods.
I think we've got a couple of questions out here, Michelle, which we can put. There's a question which says, does the extraction tool work with zTable? Absolutely. The tool can work with any data sources, whether it's your current zTables or whether it is any of your Excel spreadsheets or any other legacy systems. So the tool can definitely work. We are moving from ECC to Oracle. Again, the target source system could be Oracle, could be any other ERPs. The tool is more relevant for transformation of data from an existing source to a target source, and that's where the entire Alteryx accelerator really works. And that's the key. The transformation is the key in this whole ETL process. There are a couple of other questions specifically around licensing, Stephen.
Yeah, absolutely. It does depend on your own ecosystem and where you want to take this. If you want to go on to a premise type deployment, or you want to go into a cloud type deployment, it's kind of, think about it that it would be a toolkit and then workflow design. But once you've done your migration, it's kind of retire those workflows. You've still got the toolkit. You've still got the capability to drive this into your business and drive your efficiencies and the benefits that Marcel mentioned going forward. So it would allow you to think about, could I enable this across my enterprise? Could I enable this across my analyst team? Could I use it with my data scientists? So yeah, for the migration, the license requirements may be light, but actually, as you start to use the application, you start to look at your business as usual, you have then the opportunity to think wider, bigger, stronger. I want to gain access to the insights of my business. I want to understand the decisions I need to make. So the license requirements, they will grow with your business requirements. And cost, well, that's, again, an ecosystem size question based on how big you are, how big your migration is, how complex your architecture is, your solutions. But those are conversations we can have with you to understand how we could model this out going forward with you.
You've got a question which says we've already started migration. Is this relevant for? Absolutely. Irrespective of where you are in your journey on migration, whether you've just started, not yet started, or are in the middle of the journey, depending on whether it's greenfield or brownfield, there could be different options. So this solution is absolutely relevant, depending on where you are in your journey. How do you recommend migrating the PODS reports? Again, something we could talk and understand more in terms of what are your real expectations around this. Is it more the technical reports or is it more the data underlying these reports? What's really the expectation? Happy to understand more context on this and be able to provide you a relevant solution.
The first question there around doing a re-implementation.
Absolutely. As I mentioned, irrespective of where you are in the journey, if let's say you're doing ECC to S/4HANA, pure technical migration, versus if you're doing a re-implementation of your existing ECC landscape, this solution is absolutely relevant for the entire transformation. Data is one of the key elements in the entire transformation. We've had multiple conversations with different clients where they've got ECC, they've been using for probably 15 years. There's so much data which sits in the system. Whether should I migrate every possible data, or I should just cleanse the entire data to decide what I should take in as for HANA. I think there could be various scenarios, and the solution is absolutely relevant. And we can provide more insights. Happy to discuss and share more insights on the respective journeys.
Thank you for that, Andrew. I think I'm going to just cover the last question that just come in now around data quality. So one thing you saw from the demo that I displayed is you're connecting directly to the source data. Now, what we'll cover in the next session in the webinar is getting into the demo and breaking it apart and seeing essentially how data profiling and data quality can be done almost effortlessly as soon as you plug in your data. So we've got workflows around that where you're plugging your data, you're looking at exactly where those errors are, and then you're using data cleansing tools that immediately within one tool, cleansing the data straight away. Therefore, naturally, all your downstream data then is cleaned, and then all you're doing then is your transformation. So data quality is done throughout the transformation journey, and data quality can be seen in different layers, right? It's not just about nulls and blanks. It's around duplicates. It's about having missing values. It's about having the wrong things here and there. And what Alteryx does is really empower and make that part really, really simple. You then have the ability to run reports. So directly from your data, you can run reports, send it to a dashboard on your data quality, and you can have that running all the time. And like I've said, you build once, you have it running as part of all your workflows at the same time. So you can generate a report, all your data quality issues from start to finish.
Okay, so I think we're coming to the end of the webinar. I want to just thank everybody for joining today and let you know that we will be sending out a recording, and also just if you've got questions or you want any kind of follow up, then please do feel free to email us, and if you have specific questions, of course the team here will be happy to help answer any of those. So thank you very much.